It's Platt, and today we try a classic German Pilsner. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Radeberger. It is a Pilsner. A little background on the beer. The brewery itself was founded in 1872 in the little village of Radeberg, which is in the kind of metro area of Dresden, Germany. That was in the eastern part of Germany. That part will come in important a little bit later. Originally, the brewery was known, I'm going to butcher this, as Zoom Bird Killer, Keller Killer, so that's the best I can do there. The gentleman that was the head brewer, the first brewmaster at the brewery, was a gentleman named Conrad Brunn, and he was a pioneer in Pilsner beers, and the style that eventually took over a lot of the German breweries, but at the time it was in the 1800s, it was the burgeoning style, and he was kind of a Pied Piper, kind of their Johnny Appleseed of Pilsners. One of the decisions he made at the brewery was that we are going to focus on Pilsners. We're not in the Bock business, we're not in the Hefeweizen business, we're in the Pilsner business. And they became the first brewery in Germany to exclusively make Pilsners. Again, they weren't worried about making anything else except the best Pilsner possible. And in a certain sense, it's a very German approach to the whole thing. In 1885, they changed the name of the brewery, and I'm going to try my best at this one. Radeberger Export Beer Brewery was what they changed the name to. It's because they began exporting beer. I don't know if they thought that name made it easier for marketing in other countries or not, but that's what they changed the name to. A couple years later, they got a big boost from, of all people, Otto von Bismarck. He was the original Chancellor of Germany, if I remember right, and he was the gentleman that the Bismarck battleship, well known in World War II, is named after. He classified this beer as Councillor Brau or Chancellor Brew. I didn't know politicians made those kind of designations. I guess if Dan Quayle was into Sam Adams back in the day, he could have made it the Vice President Brau or something like that. You never know, but I found that unique. Move ahead a few years in 1905, and they take it up a notch. Radeberger became the official drink of King. Let me check notes here. King Frederick Augustus III of Saxony. At the time, Germany wasn't whole like we envision it today. Still in the early 1900s, there's different kingdoms and fiefdoms and this, that, and the other. There was still the Austrian-Hungary Empire. And so there was still Saxony and the king, and this was his official drink. Also that year, they began exporting to U.S. and Canada. Over the next 40 years, they kind of grind along. They had, a couple of world wars to get through, what have you. Unfortunately for them, on the other side of World War II, did not work out so well. In 1946, after the war was over, they were part of East Germany. They were behind the wall. Thus, the government socialized it, took over the company. It became a government-ran entity. They chugged along the next 45 years, though, still kept brewing beer, though, even though, again, they weren't doing that capitalist thing, until 1990 when the wall fell. Now, quickly after the wall fell, Western capitalists, Western money came in quickly purchased the brewery, gave it additional funding, modernized the brewery, started hitting it toward the 21st century. In 2004, the brewery was purchased by a company known as the Oether Group. Apparently, this is like one of those private equity, hedge fund kind of things. Took the company private, and so a lot of the back-end management or the knowledge about the corporate structure is a little unknown. Oddly enough, there are two fans or proponents of this beer, and the idea of these two guys getting together and having a beer kind of tickles me. First, if you've ever seen the show 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen, apparently his character was named Charlie too. I think Charlie Palmer, something like that. This was the beer he drank in the show, and from what I gathered, Sheen did drink it he probably drank everything off the show. But it was his beer of choice on the show, and you would see it on the show. Kind of amazing if you think about it, because those product placement things happen, like James Bond. At one time it was Smirnoff vodka martinis, then Heineken's, whatever. but it's the big brands that do that. Something like this for a show as big as Two and a Half Men was is quite interesting. The other one is Vladimir Putin. Apparently, in his early KGB days, he was stationed at the Dresden KGB office, what have you, and while there, gained a fondness for the beer. So again, the idea that Charlie Sheen and Vladimir Putin might have a Radeberger together does tickle me a little bit. Real quick, let's talk about some of their other beers they have under the Radeberger line. This it, but the Other Group has some other beer brands they manage. First is something called Schaffenhofer. They refer to this as a mixed beer. Remember, Germany has a stringent beer labeling laws. Apparently, this is a line of beers with Hefeweizen and different fruit juices or fruit flavors, kind of a Hefeweizen shandy. Next is Sion Kolsch, S-I-O-N, founded by a gentleman named Hans Sion. He's kind of a Pied Piper of the Kolsch beers, and his big statement is that a true Kolsch can only be made in Copenhagen, where they're brewing, probably similar to some of the British beers they use with the special local water. And lastly is Braufaktum. It's supposedly a line of German craft beers, and the odd thing about that is craft beer loves to work outside the box. German beers are all about inside the box. They have an IPA and another ale, but they fit within the German beer purity law, so it's still in the box, maybe just different shades on the box or something, I don't know. But anyway, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. Real quick today, when I was doing a little research for this beer, being a classic German style beer, I just got to think about beer gardens. It makes sense. And I thought, what is the largest beer garden in the world? So I looked it up, and there's 1.5 claimants. The first is something called Hirschgarten in Munich, Germany. It is, if you see pictures of the massive Oktoberfest or wherever, just lines and lines of wooden tables and tents and stuff, it's probably a picture of that. It is the largest beer garden in the world. Seats 8,000 people. Just absolute insanity. The history of the place dates all the way back to 1791. It started off as a restaurant. I'm sure they served a few beers too. And then eventually kind of became a beer garden, started to grow and expand. But 8,000 people. Boy, why's that line to the bathroom like? Gracious. Next is, they're not necessarily claiming to be the world's largest as far as capacity or number of people, but as far as beer selection. The Raleigh Beer Garden in Raleigh, North Carolina, claims that they have the largest beer selection for a beer garden in the world. 378 beers on tap. That's just absolute insanity. If you've ever been to like a yard house, they're like 120 to 150 beers on tap, and I don't know how they manage that. 378. You have to have probably a couple of barbacks on all the time, just changing kegs, cleaning lines, what have you. So that's just insanity. Well, enough about that. Let's drink a German Pilsner beer. Alrighty. Nice. Dark straw, light gold. Got more than a finger width. A really nice white head. Put it on there. Alright, you get a little hop. Standard kind of European lager, you're going to get more malt, not a lot of hops. You get some hops here. Pilsners always provide a nice little hop crispness, and you get that on the nose. Let's go in for a drink. Oh man, that is good. Nice and malty. Has a little, I say that if you're used to drinking lagers, if you're used to drinking things like Miller Lite and Coors Light, stuff like that, this is going to have slightly more body. And if you're more overall beer drinker into stout, stuff like that, it's still on the lighter end. But if you're used to light beers, this will have a little body to it. It's going to have just that hop crispness. It's not a bitterness that like in the IPA world. It's more just crisp. It's just a nice snap of the hops in the back of your mouth. It goes down easy. This is a good spring, summertime beer, late summer kind of thing. Goes down real easy, fits classically in that style. Again, I think Conrad Brewing would be proud in the sense that they just made a real good Pilsner. Just a straightforward beer. Something I wish more people would just kind of focus on the beer. This just makes a good beer, and everything will take care of itself. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.